Have you ever felt the strange ache of walking away? Not out of anger, not to punish, but because your soul whispered that your life was larger than any single connection? Have you ever tasted the silence that comes after you release your grip, and felt the trembling power in knowing you would rather stand alone in truth than stay bound in the illusion of closeness? There is a paradox so ancient it burns like the stars, and it is this: the moment you turn inward, men see you more clearly than ever. The instant you withdraw your seeking gaze, they begin to search for yours. It is the mystery of the flame that flickers but does not chase, the mountain that stands unmoved yet draws clouds to crown its summit. You become, in your leaving, an echo that follows him home. And he finds that the more you dwell in your own depths, the more he feels the gravity of your absence pressing against his ribs. For a woman who breaks away does not diminish her light, she concentrates it. And men, whether they admit it or not, cannot resist a woman who belongs fiercely to herself. Because there is a secret law woven into the very bones of desire. Longing does not grow where we are consumed with need. It grows where there is space. It blooms in the soil of distance, fed by the silent knowing that she is complete with or without him. And so I ask you, what if the love you want does not come from holding tighter, but from letting go? Let me tell you a truth you may already feel in your marrow. Men can't resist women who break away from them. But not because they're playing games or wielding detachment as a weapon. No, it's because in that very moment of stepping back, a woman steps into herself. She becomes sovereign. And there is nothing more magnetic than a woman who knows she is enough without anyone else's eyes reflecting it back. Carl Jung once wrote that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In love, this means turning inward to face our own shadows, our own places of emptiness, rather than trying to fill them with another's presence. For what is most irresistible is not a woman who waits to be chosen, but a woman who has chosen herself and whose life burns with meaning, whether he stays or goes. This video is not about tactics. It is not about delayed texts or pretending you don't care. It is about the deep alchemy of feminine detachment, a way of loving that arises from your wholeness, not from fear. It is about how the moment you remember that your soul was born complete, you unlock a force of gravity so potent it bends the masculine psyche toward you without effort or intent. Because men are not drawn to women who cling. They are drawn to women who can walk away, and who carry the scent of distant places in their hair. Women whose eyes hold the horizon. Women who, even when in love, know that the richest terrain they will ever traverse is the terrain of their own inner world. So if you have ever wondered why it is that men can't seem to forget the woman who left, the woman who grew silent, the woman who turned her gaze inward and found the entire galaxy reflected there, know this: it is not her absence that enchants them. It is her presence, rooted so deeply in herself that no storm can uproot her. And that, my love, is what this is about. But let me speak clearly so there's no confusion. Detachment is not a trick you perform to make him miss you. It is not ignoring his calls so he'll call twice. It is not replying hours later with calculated nonchalance. That is not sovereignty. That is theater. And a man who is even half awake can smell the difference between performance and presence. True detachment does not arise from fear, but from fullness. It's not a game, it's a frequency. It's the silent hum of a woman who knows her worth, who does not need to manipulate space to create desire, because her very being is an invitation to come closer, or to leave, if closeness cannot be met with depth. The woman who truly detaches does not punish him with absence. She withdraws because she refuses to abandon herself. She does not withdraw affection to make him beg. She simply refuses to pour herself into an empty cup. She will not keep twisting herself into smaller and smaller shapes for a love that cannot contain her magnitude. It is so tempting, I know, to believe that distance is the secret ingredient to keep him interested. So tempting to think that if you just withhold enough, he will come chasing. But that is not the detachment I'm speaking of. That is not power. It's fear in disguise. Because manipulation always comes from a wound. The wound that believes love must be earned through performance, through tactics, through the illusion of scarcity. True detachment is spacious. It carries no malice. It is the quiet lake whose surface remains undisturbed even as stones are cast upon it. It's not that she feels nothing, it's that her feelings no longer own her. She feels deeply, but she does not collapse into her feelings. She can love without dissolving. She can desire without demanding. She can stay without losing herself or leave without becoming bitter. There's a quality about such a woman that makes a man's chest tighten with a yearning he cannot quite name. It's the recognition that he cannot possess her, not because she's unavailable, but because she belongs to herself first. And when a woman belongs to herself, the whole world bends toward her gravity, men most of all. Carl Jung understood this dance intimately. He saw that love is not merely affection between two people, but a stage upon which the psyche plays out its deepest truths and illusions. He taught that what you see in another is often a reflection of what lies hidden within yourself. This is why love can feel both transcendent and torturous, because it is the mirror that reveals your shadow as much as your light. Have you ever met someone and felt as if you'd known them forever, though you've barely exchanged words? That is projection at work. Jung called it the unconscious transfer of your inner world onto another. You're not simply seeing him, you're seeing your longing, your wounds, your unlived dreams. You're seeing the parts of yourself you've exiled into darkness, now shimmering back at you through the curve of his smile or the way his eyes linger on yours. And just as you project your light, you also project your shadow. The fears, the wounds, the belief that you are not enough unless he tells you so. This is why relationships ignite so quickly and burn so hot, because you're not merely in love with him. You're in love with your own missing pieces reflected in his gaze. Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the inner feminine in a man and the inner masculine in a woman. When a man is drawn to you, it is often because you awaken his anima, his own buried sensitivity, creativity, intuition. And when you are drawn to a man, it is sometimes your animus you are pursuing, your own dormant assertiveness, your drive, your focused purpose. The dance between lovers is often a dance between these inner opposites seeking union. But herein lies the danger. When you do not know yourself, you cannot tell the difference between genuine love and projection. You think it's him you're yearning for, but often it's yourself. And so you cling, you twist, you perform. You grasp for him to complete you, instead of completing yourself. Individuation, Jung said, is the process of becoming whole, of integrating your shadow, of recognizing that you already carry within you everything you seek outside. And when a woman steps into this path, she becomes sovereign. Her love transforms from hunger to offering. She becomes the sun that burns from her own core, and it is this inner radiance that men cannot resist. For the man who stands before her is no longer a rescuer, a savior, a missing piece. He is simply a companion. And this, my love, is where real love begins. There comes a moment when a woman who has lived her life orbiting the sun of another man's attention decides to become her own source of light. She remembers, often in a quiet instant, that her worth was never meant to hang on his approval like a star trembling on a thread. In that moment she steps back, not to punish him, not to spark pursuit, but because the soil of her soul demands space to breathe. This is the dance of feminine sovereignty. It is the dance of a woman who no longer bends her rhythm to match his drum. She begins to move to a music older than memory, a music carried in her blood from generations of women who also learned to rise from their knees. She may still love him deeply. She may still desire him fiercely. But her love no longer comes shackled to expectation. She no longer hands him the pen to write the story of her life. She no longer prays to be chosen. She chooses herself again and again, and that devotion to her own soul becomes the root of her magnetism. Imagine a forest where each tree grows in its own shape, reaching skyward without crowding its neighbor. Each stands sovereign, yet together they create a living cathedral. So it is with a sovereign woman. She does not need to overshadow him, nor to shrink for him to shine. She becomes a presence that fills the room, even in stillness. And he feels it. He may not have words for it, but he senses the subtle shift in the air when her eyes no longer search for his. He feels the edge of his own soul trembling, called forth to meet her in her fullness or risk being left behind in his half-lived life. Men are drawn to the sovereign woman not because she withholds affection, but because her affection is a gift, not a contract. She gives from fullness, not emptiness. She can say yes with all her heart, or walk away with all her dignity. And that, my love, is the essence of power. For a woman who knows she can walk away is never a prisoner of any man's attention. She becomes the horizon itself, beautiful, distant, and infinite, and he, whether he knows it or not, becomes a man forever seeking that horizon. Yet there's another secret woven into the art of feminine power, and it lies in the silent spaces between words. In a world that screams for instant reactions and fast answers, there's a woman who sits quietly, anchored like the oak in the storm. This is the power of non-reaction and stillness. For true power does not rush to defend itself. It does not leap into battle at every provocation. True power breathes, observes, and waits. A sovereign woman knows that silence can speak volumes that words could never hold. Have you ever felt the sting of a cruel remark, the jab of a careless tone, the sharp chill of being dismissed, and wanted desperately to strike back? To prove your worth? To force him to see your value? I have, and perhaps so have you. But understand this. Reaction is what they expect. It is what feeds the dance of chaos. Instead, imagine a woman who feels every emotion rising like a tidal wave within her and chooses to remain still. She does not suppress her truth, but she does not spill it into the hands of someone who would only use it to wound her further. Her silence is not emptiness. It is deliberate space. In that space, the man who once relied on her reactions is left alone with his own echo. He must face himself because she has refused to become the stage on which his shadows perform. He will feel confusion, curiosity, perhaps even fear, because silence denies him the script he was counting on. Jung said that everything that irritates us in others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So what if, instead of filling the silence, you listen to what your own discomfort is trying to reveal? What if your non-reaction became the doorway to your own depth? A woman rooted in stillness knows that she does not owe anyone her immediate answers, her explanations, or her confessions. She understands that time clarifies what impulse would only complicate. And in that patience, she commands a gravity that pulls truth to the surface like the sun pulls blooms from the soil. Stillness is not weakness, it is strength distilled. It is the quiet roar of a woman who knows her worth so completely that she can sit in silence while the world spins around her. And know that when she does choose to speak, her words will land like arrows, true and unforgettable. Or in non-reaction, you claim the final say over your own story. And that, more than any shouted retort or desperate plea, is the echo of true power. There is a woman whose eyes hold a spark that no man can extinguish, because it was lit by something far older than romance. It was lit by purpose. It burns with the knowledge that she came here not merely to be loved, but to create, to build, to express the singular note of her soul's music that no one else can sing. Purpose is the secret current beneath true feminine magnetism. It is the river that carves canyons over millennia, silent yet unstoppable. A woman who lives in purpose does not wait for a man to give her life meaning. She rises each morning with something to serve, something to shape, some fragment of beauty or truth she must bring into the world. Think of the artist, brush in hand, painting through tears and laughter because her soul demands it. Think of the healer whose touch calms storms in human hearts. Think of the woman who writes words that become lanterns in the dark. These women are magnetic not because they seek attention, but because they have become the embodiment of their own calling. A man stands before such a woman and senses that to love her is to enter the orbit of something vast. He realizes he cannot be the center of her universe, and strangely, this does not push him away. It draws him closer, because her life has a gravitational pull, and he wants to know what star burns at its center. Purpose silences the gnawing questions of worth. It quiets the anxious mind that wonders, am I enough? For when you are in your purpose, comparison fades, and you are too busy creating to beg for validation. You no longer offer your life as an empty canvas for a man to paint his desires upon. You become the painter of your own masterpiece. And this, my love, is how you become irresistible without trying, because your eyes no longer search outward for permission to shine. They glow from the light of your inner fire. a man cannot help but notice. For there is nothing more captivating than a woman whose life is already in motion, a woman who has chosen herself, her mission, and her truth. But there is one final piece to this journey into sovereignty, and it is perhaps the most difficult of all, the art of withdrawing your projections. Because so often, what we think is love is the shimmering reflection of our own forgotten parts. You meet a man and feel as if he carries the answer to every ache you've ever held. You see your wildness in his laughter, your hidden tenderness in his gentle touch. You look at him and believe you finally see yourself reflected back as whole and beloved. But Jung taught that what we love most fiercely in another is often the unlived life within us. The dreams we've suppressed, the traits we were told were too much or not enough, the shadows we've kept locked away for fear they'd make us unlovable. We project these fragments onto him, and suddenly he becomes a god, a savior, the missing piece we've been waiting for. Ask yourself, was I in love with him, or with who I wanted him to be? Was I longing for his presence, or for the part of myself he awakened? Did he betray me, or did he simply refuse to live the story I'd written for him in the private chambers of my mind? To withdraw projections is not to stop loving. It is to love more honestly. It is to look at him and say, I see you, not as my mirror, but as a separate soul, with your own path, your own wounds, your own light. And in that moment, the fog lifts. You reclaim your power piece by piece. Because a relationship built on projection is a house of mirrors, each reflection beautiful yet distorted. But a relationship built on presence is like standing beside a clear pool, able to see your own face as it truly is, while still beholding the beauty of the one who stands beside you. And when you take back those projected pieces, you do not become less loving. You become more whole. You discover that everything you thought you saw in him, your passion, your creativity, your wildness, is yours to live with or without him. And this is the miracle. The more you withdraw your projections, the more capable you become of seeing him clearly. Of loving him not as a savior, but as a companion. Of loving yourself not as half a soul in search of completion, but as a universe already overflowing. So now, beloved, I ask you, who are you when no one is looking? Who are you when his gaze falls away, when his voice grows silent, when the door closes and the only echo in the room is your own breath? Do you remember that you are the flame, not the moth? That you are the ocean, not the tide chasing the shore? That you were born whole, luminous, sovereign, before any man ever whispered that he saw you? Because love is not the quest to be chosen. Love is not the performance of shrinking and bending until you fit into the hollow spaces of another's wounds. Love is not the vine twisting itself around the nearest tree to feel rooted. Love is two sovereign souls standing side by side, each blazing with their own fire, each singing the song of their own becoming. Love is a man looking at a woman who stands unafraid in her wholeness, and feeling his own depths stirred, not to possess her, but to rise and meet her there. There is nothing more magnetic than a woman who no longer chases, because she has finally come home to herself. Her silence sings, her presence commands without effort. Her absence lingers like perfume in the air long after she's left the room. So I leave you with this. Burn, not for him, but because that is who you are. Stand, not waiting to be claimed, but because your roots run deep and your branches reach for the stars. Love, not from hunger, but from overflow. And let whoever is drawn to that fire come. Not because you pursued, but because you stayed true. Because you stayed home. For that, my love, that is the resonance that men can never resist. And that is the birthright of a woman who has remembered that she is and always has been whole.